Most of us think about belly fat as just being a cosmetic nuisance. It makes it harder to buckle our pants, and it just doesn't look as attractive as a nice, lean, fit abdomen would. But there's actually a lot more to it. My name is Dr. Ritamarie, and I'm really excited to share with you about the fat that lurks around your midline, belly fat, and the dangers that actually pose. And I want to make an analogy to our stream here. A month ago, we hadn't had rain, and this was completely dry. Well, see how beautiful it is now, and how melodious the sounds are. So a month ago, it just wasn't quite as beautiful here. It was still beautiful, but it wasn't quite the same. But more than that, the effect on the environment of not having water here was more far-reaching. It was a lot more important, a lot more dangerous than the fact that there was no water in the stream. For example, there's all sorts of wildlife living in this stream. Where did they go when there was no water? It completely affected their ecology. What about the plants, the mosses in this stream? That affected that as well. What about downstream, the areas that were being watered and fed, and the wildlife down there? So the lack of water here in the stream was not just a cosmetic thing. It was just not something that made the environment a little bit less beautiful. It affected life far-reaching. That's the same thing with your belly fat. And I just want to distinguish, there's two different types of belly fat. There's the kind that's on the outside that most people know as the kind you can grab with your hands and pull out. And then there's the other that's underneath, that's coating your organs. That's the kind that's the most damaging. The external one is, a little bit more of the cosmetic issue. The internal is a lot more damaging, because inside of that fat that lines your organs is a chemical that gets produced called C-reactive protein, and it's very inflammatory. And when you're producing more inflammatory chemicals, the effects are far-reaching throughout your body. You can have an increased risk of cancer, because cancer comes from inflammatory processes. You have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. You have inflammation in your blood vessels, which can affect the way the blood flows, eventually can cause a clot that can hurt your heart or your brain. It can affect your lungs, that extra inflammation, and cause you to have asthmatic problems or inflammation in your lungs. The other thing that's been studied quite extensively with relationship to belly fat and C-reactive protein is dementia, which is the condition of the brain where you lose your memory. A study at Drexel University, about 6,500 people found that you had a 50% higher rate of dementia in those that had a higher rate of belly fat. Interesting, huh? Dementia's no fun. So what are we going to do about this? So in this series, we're exploring the causes of the excess belly fat. One of them is stress. One of them is your exercise level and the hormones that get produced as a result of exercise. And the other is your diet. Very important piece is your diet. And the effect of the foods you eat on your blood sugar and on your insulin levels. So the fat around your waist, excess fat around your waist, actually puts you at much higher risk of diabetes, and a condition that's actually often termed pre-diabetes, which is called insulin resistance. And it's estimated that over 60% of the adult population over the age of 50 has insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is also a problem for younger people. And we see that as we go and look at our young kids that are going into high school. As soon as they hit puberty, you start to see these relatively slender kids with big bellies. That's not just baby fat that they're going to outgrow. That's this dangerous fat. And a lot of it comes from the diet that they're eating. The sugars, the refined carbohydrates, the bread, that's a biggie. Some people say, well, I don't eat sugar. How could this be a problem for me? Well, you eat pasta and bread and muffins, things like that. So what do you do about it? Well, I would stay tuned for the whole rest of this series and come on to the teleseminar, because we're going to go into a lot more detail about the causes and what you can do about it. But for now, big thing that you can do to help control this excess belly fat is to watch your diet. And start by just taking out all the noticeable sugar, the obvious stuff. You know, the sugar that you put in tea, or the cookies, or the cakes, or the soft drinks, and get that out of your diet. But the next stage is then to look deeper and look at the hidden sources of sweeteners and starches in your diet. So the breads, even if they're whole grain breads, contribute to this problem. Gluten contributes to this problem. So my action request for you, start by getting all the visible sugar out. The sugar, the maple syrup, the honey, the agave. Keep that to a minimum, if not eliminate it completely. And then the next step would be to look at all the starches that you're eating. How much bread and pasta and muffins, even if they don't have added sweeteners to them. So go ahead and get started, and we'll see you on the next video.